Our next speaker is Robert Shimek. He's an executive director of the White Earth Land Recovery Project since February 2014 and was one of the founding board members of the organization. He's been involved in events highlighting the effect of pesticides on the White Earth community in Minnesota. Robert. I'll be sitting right down there and I'll have Saun to show you.
Bonjour and Denamwe Ganananik. Hello, all my relatives. When I walked in yesterday, I looked around the building and I couldn't help but think about the individual, the senator, the man that this building is named after, Hubert H. Humphrey, amongst many other things, U.S. Senator from Minnesota during his time. And what immediately came to mind was, a thought, an idea, and I just want to kind of paraphrase it for a minute. Something he said many years ago. And he was talking about the success or the failure of democracy and ways to measure that, ways to look at that. And what he said was essentially, the failure of the success or the success or the failure of democracy can be measured by three very simple things. Look at those individuals who are on the dawn of life. Look at those who are on the margins of life. And look at those who are at the dusk of their life. If those three are doing well, we are doing well as a democracy. And so, in thinking through, what am I going to do today? I wanted to talk a little bit first about those who are in the dawn of life. How are the children? Are they well? Are they getting the best and the most out of life, their early life? The education, the quality of the education, the quality of the environment they live in, the safety of the food that they eat, all these different things. And I also want to talk just a little bit about where I'm from. Gawa Babikanakag Ishkonagan in Dunjaba. That place of the white clay that has been reserved for us. That is where I'm from. The White Earth Indian Reservation. It's about where I live is about 4.5, 5 hours northwest of here. And the White Earth Reservation was originally about 800, it's a square, 36 miles by 36 miles, created by treaty in 1867. But by 1934, of that approximate 820,000 acres, we only had 760 left. So when we talk about dispossession of land, we also have to talk about dispossession of language, culture, ceremony, song, dance, even our kids. Our kids during the assimilation and the acculturation era were hauled off to boarding schools without the consent of their parents. So that's just a little bit. about where we're at. And since then, we have recovered a fair amount of land. I think we're somewhat over 80,000 acres of land are back into tribal ownership, which is, a significant measure from where we were, but we still have much to do in terms of land recovery. I want to talk about the agriculture on our reservation for a minute, because we are one of those checkerboard reservations. We have multiple classes of ownership: private, corporate, government, tribal, etc. In the southeastern part of our reservation, we have a community. It's right on the reservation boundary. One side of the road is the White Earth Nation. The other side of the road is the state of Minnesota and the United States of America. And because of the checkerboard ownership, a corporate farm by the name of RDO, and RDO, for those of you who don't know, it stands for Ronald Donald Offutt, who formed a family business and eventually came to be the largest potato producer in North America, selling to the largest consumer of potatoes in North America, that being McDonald's. Okay? McDonald's, French fries, hash browns, etc. That's Pine Point. Pine Point Township, 6 miles by 6 miles, has 55 center pivot irrigation wells, and it's all on very sandy, very porous soil. The other part of our reservation, where there's lots of agriculture, is actually in the Red River Valley. One of the interesting things about White Earth is it was actually designed to be successful as an Indian reservation. I mean, there was lots of natural wealth when the reservation was created, and that western part was formerly known as the Prairie Pothole region, since it's been all drained and tiled. And again, huge industrial agriculture. The small farmers out there are 4,000 to 5,000 acres. Some of the corporate farms out there, I don't even know how many acres they farm, but they're huge. And like I said, it's all industrial ag. Out there, the potato farmers, the RDO, to give you an example of some of what goes on our reservation, the potato crop, the potato fields, have to be sprayed every 5 to 7 days with chlorothalonil during the entire growing season. Then at the end of the growing season, I don't know what they hit them with, if it's 2,4-D or I'm not sure, but they spray at the end of the growing season to kill the vines to get them ready for harvest. So we get inundated with spray, with chemicals. Getting back to the children here for a second. The Pine Point School it's a small school, but of the enrollment, 27% of the kids in that school qualify for some type of a special education program. In one of the adjacent communities just off our reservation, a community called Park Rapids, which is kind of ground zero for RDO, their special education rates run anywhere from 18 to 21%, depending on the year. Lay that alongside of a state average of 13%. Okay, if you take all of them together, statewide, about 13% of our kids qualify for some type of a special education program. And also in the community of Park Rapids, autism is off the charts. I mean, there's nurses, health professionals, can't keep up with the calls. What do we do? How do we take care of autistic children? So, I don't know. When I think about our kids and where this is all headed, I mean, we've heard a lot already. And I just want to say, you know, all of that plus more needs to be done to protect our children. So I want to talk just a little bit about the law, okay? And what we're trying to do on the White Earth Reservation. Just a couple of weeks ago, I had a meeting with RDO, the farm division of the Ronald Donald Offutt Corporation. And I asked them, would you consider going organic on those fields that are directly adjacent to the tribal housing on the reservation? And there's a lot of things I can't disclose about that conversation because it's kind of informal and off the charts right now. But, you know, all I can say is they've agreed to think about it, and we'll talk again. Okay? And incidentally, RDO farms about 6,000 acres in northeastern Oregon organically. So they know how to do it. They have some history. But we have 3 villages that we're trying to get these buffer zones established. And I say directly adjacent to tribal housing because that's where we actually have some leverage with the law, okay? There's 3 villages. Pine Point I've already identified. The village where we have our office actually in Callaway, Minnesota, it's kind of in that western part of the reservation. We watch the spray planes every summer from our office. And, you know, one of my friends, the housing project she lives in, the spray planes turn directly over her house every summer as they're applying the pesticides. So we're going to ask them in Pine Point and in Callaway and also up in Mahnomen to give us a 1,400-foot buffer. I know that's not a lot, you know, but it's a start. It's something. It's somewhere. And we're going to kind of go after these guys and see if we can get them to voluntarily comply. But the flip side of that whole issue is White Earth. The White Earth Indian Reservation has the delegated authority from the U.S. EPA to do pesticide regulation on the reservation. Now, nationally, there's not a lot of reservations that have that, simply because most reservations were put out on a rock pile or, you know, a bunch of gravel or sand or desert or something, and there isn't much agriculture. But because White Earth is so rich and so diverse, we do have a lot of agriculture. And it's all non-native. I guess it's important to say that as well. So what's happened so far? Well, last year, through the Minnesota Department of Agriculture, we tested all the private wells in and around Pine Point. Oh no, we didn't test all the wells in and around Pine Point. We tested 16 of the approximately 35 that are out there. And did come up with one of the wells that is above the level of, or the allowable level for nitrates. I think the level is 10 parts per million, and we had one well come in at 14. There's 3 other wells that are below that 10, but they're wells of concern, so we're going to keep testing those to see if they are trending one way or the other in terms of the nitrate contamination. And, you know, these are the kinds of things that are important when we come to examine, well, what can be done? I think the other thing that's important is, you know, we may have some wells, especially in the Pine Point area, that would qualify for some type of wellhead protection. So that gives us 1,000 feet from the wellhead itself. So I wanted to spend just a minute, talk a little bit more about what's going on there. Probably about, I don't know, 2007, I guess, probably about 10 years ago, we formed an organization on the reservation called the White Earth Pesticide Action Network. And we started formally meeting with especially RDO. Okay. And we, I have to say, you know, we've made a difference. We have made a difference. White Earth Pesticide Action Network morphed into a campaign we're calling Toxic Taters. And they're here, and they're the ones who've joined forces with, you know, lots of other individuals and organizations off the reservation to do this more regional approach to try and deal with the pesticide contamination in the Central Sands region of Minnesota, which is where RDO plants about 35,000 acres of potatoes a year. So not only dealing with RDO, they also have a campaign that deals with McDonald's Corporation, which is, like I said earlier, the largest consumer of potatoes in North America. You can find out more about that. I think there's some information out there on one of the tables. And, you know, we have the unwritten law also. We have all these codes, regulations, pesticides, wellhead protection, groundwater, drinking water, safety regs, all these things. But we also have what we call a 7th generation principle, which requires us to think out 7 generations ahead in terms of those decisions we make today and how that's going to affect those 7 generations from now. I want to just say, you know, we're heading somewhere with all this. And I'm really, really pleased to come to a meeting like this and talk about a little bit about what's happening in one small corner of Indian country in terms of carving out a safe and secure future for our children. I want to just close, I want to close with a thought I put on Facebook 6 years ago today. You Facebook junkies, you know, you get your reminders what you did 2 years ago or whatever. Here's something I posted 6 years ago. And this is about where I live on the reservation. Last night, I took a walk down the Mary Yellowhead Road. That's the road I live on. I stopped at Yellowhead Lake and couldn't help but stand there and send out to all corners of the universe a prayer to all who would hear, a message of honor, respect, and gratitude for the beauty and the bounty of the world we live in. Thank you all for your time. Miigwech Nibawa.